Hello and welcome to Consciously Awesome Living. I'm your host, Sheila Applegate, manifestation coach and creator of the Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure, which I'll tell you a little bit more about at the end. We are focusing this season on helping you to design your most brilliant life, whatever that means to you. And today, I want to talk about science and spirituality can be friends. And I know that seems kind of basic, and you might be saying, how does this fit into designing my life? But I think it's really important to talk about now because I've seen a rise of maybe conflict between science and spirituality. It's been an issue maybe throughout all of history, but I thought, and I think it really is, we're coming together to a place where we realize that in truth, science and spirituality are leading to the same understandings from different perspectives. But maybe over the last several years, there's been sort of an uprising of uncertainty about that. So I just want to kind of talk about that with you, and share with you my perspective and explore that possibility so that you can come to your own understanding of how those fit together. Why is that important in manifesting or creating the life you desire? It's important because science is everywhere, right? Like, it's science that developed the technology that we use. It's science that helps us to eat, to be fed, to um, be healthy, to be here alive. So really we have to come to an understanding of that friendship, right? And as we look into this more, you'll see that it's actually supportive of the idea that we can create, and that our efforts that we've talked about actually do have a scientific basis to them, which is good to know, right? So let's kind of go back to the beginning. And the word science itself emerged in the 19th century in the midst of attempts of narrowly defining those who studied nature. So science, in its core, as its beginning name, was about the study of nature. So if we remember that, I think that in itself can help us to realize that if we're on a spiritual path, we're often connected to nature, and we understand that that relationship and exploring that is part of the process that we're moving through. So coming back to that understanding is helpful. And I also just want to give you some quotes from some of the scientists that you may have heard of in their perspective of this friendship that science and spirituality actually have. So the Francis Collins, who is the director of the National Health Institute and the winner of the 2020 Templeton Prize, said this: "The God of the Bible is also the God of the genome." He said, "He can be worshiped in the cathedral or in the laboratory." So that statement, that understanding that when we are thinking of God, the essence, the energy of divine that we speak of, that can be reached either from the microorganisms or all the way up to the existential expansion that we speak of with the universe and divine oneness. And just like we've spoken about how various religions, when we get to the truth of it, they actually have the same core and they can find the path to the divine, right? So on the outside, many religions may look different from each other, but at the core, they have universal truths that can lead you to the divine. Science is another path like that. Um, I would guess that some mathematicians would say that you can find the divine through math too. I haven't explored that as extremely. So let's go on to another well known scientist. I'm sure you've heard of Albert Einstein. Here are a couple quotes of Albert Einstein. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous, and no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And I think that's very interesting because when you think about when I think about spirituality, and I'm guessing that since you're here on Consciously Awesome Living, you may have these same perceptions, that I am talking about levels of consciousness, right? I'm talking about shifting attention to higher frequencies, higher levels of consciousness to gain information. When I channel, that's what I'm doing. When I lead you in a meditation, that's what I'm doing. I'm helping you to shift your attention and to access different levels of consciousness. And through that, and through your imagination, you may perceive different possible outcomes and create that life that you desire. So we have the same base of understanding that we have to shift consciousness in order to solve or resolve the issues in our life. And then we'll go with one more, and that's Nikola Tesla. And he said, "My brain is only a receiver. The universe is the core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." So we've all heard of Tesla and the inventions that he was able to create, and some that were then kind of taken over by other people because we always have human and capitalism in there. But when we understand that scientists, most scientists, are going into whatever experiment they're doing, whatever the problem they're solving, they're going in with an open mind. Part of the scientific process is being able to see beyond what is in front of you, to stay open and to allow new data to come in. And as we see in some of these quotes, we understand that they're accessing in a way um, an an aspect of themselves that they don't know exists, right? They know it's beyond what their personal knowledge is in that moment, because that's how we have new discoveries, from staying open and looking at all possibilities. So when we look at it from this perspective, we see that science and the way I view spirituality, and maybe the way you view spirituality, is really the same frequency. We're moving through that process of understanding, experiencing new things, and staying open for that collective consciousness to give us new information. Now, my youngest child, Justin, is a biochemist. And as Justin is studying science more, I have had a new understanding, a new interest. In fact, if I look at it, even before Justin moved into the sciences as a study, um, the more I opened up to higher consciousness, the more I channeled, the more I meditated and experienced and had the drive to connect the pieces of consciousness and how we do. So it's one thing to channel, it's another thing to then figure out, how am I channeling? Why is this working? What does this mean? And how do I explain it to another person? Or same with energy healing. I've been an energy healer, a Reiki master, and taught Reiki years ago, and have moved into different modalities. And even just a few years ago, brought through divine experience, a new form of channeling, a new frequency called fractal illumination, that actually, when I spoke with a quantum physicist, really they were able to fill in some of the blanks of what I was doing and experiencing that I didn't know. I just had this sort of download, and I feel the energy moving through me. So when I reach towards science, it actually enhances my understanding, and my interest has grown more and more. When Justin moved into biochemistry, and then, you know, COVID came, those two things intersecting. I was interested in the biochemistry as Justin did different um, worked in different labs, because I was starting to understand more of the DNA, even though energetically I was using the double helix and in shifting and visualizing differences in the DNA. As Justin shared more information with me, I understood how those intersect and they fit together. So for me, I come to it first from sort of the spiritual perspective, then I usually get that scientific information that doesn't conflict to me, but really enhances the experience of what I have gone through. So to me, I want to say, like, yes, science and spirituality are friends, like best friends. We're finally here. But like I said, there's still some conflict. And I think that if we look through history, some of that conflict early on was that, and usually it's religion and spirituality that had a conflict, or I'm sorry, religion and science. Sometimes religion and spirituality does have a conflict, if you ask me. But religion to me is different than spirituality, right? So for me, spirituality is remembering that divine, accessing the essence, connecting my spark to the oneness of all that is, and to nature, and to everyone around me, and to explore what my soul can do to its highest potential, and in that space live a good life. Now, religions have that in them, and I truly believe that at the core of nearly all religions is the path to truth. But religions are also structures that have been developed by humans and put around in some ways to control society. So some of the rules around it are to manage or control, and so the need to keep someone not in knowledge may be more prevalent in a structure, although we are seeing that in what seems to be non-structured spirituality that maybe still has a structure on it. So I think that what happened when there was a conflict, or what happens now still when people feel a conflict, is that they feel as if you tell me that this isn't a miracle that I just experienced, then you're threatening me. So if I believe that my God creates miracles for me, then you tell me how it works. Maybe that feels like you're denying my God, right? Or this need for faith to be what I understand now is essential. And so it feels like it's intruding on that, when if you understand that just learning more of how the miracle worked doesn't change the wonder or the miracle in it or the effect of it, but rather enhances your understanding of it, and maybe expands the understanding of what God or creator or the divine is. The truth is the truth, and the truth will hold up under any circumstance. And that is what we need to remember. So, we're going to talk about that a little bit more after break. So, just be back in just a minute and we'll continue with this discussion.
Solivity Magazine and Beyond Words Publishing want to remind you about the importance of continuing to follow public health guidelines to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Please continue to wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Please visit these sites for further information about how to stay safe from COVID-19 into the new year. Remember, love protects us.
Hello and welcome back. Let's continue our discussion about the friendship between science and spirituality. Now that we realize that, yes, science and spirituality truly can be friends. As we were ending the first section, I talked about how the truth is the truth in every direction that you seek it, right? So when we think about this, spirituality is not a threat to science, and science is not a threat to spirituality. The concepts that we have in each one of them that are true, though we may attain the information differently, we may express the information differently, but in truth, the truth is going to remain the same in either direction. Just like in any religion, the truth is the truth no matter what is around it. So if you get to the core truths, they're going to be there and there won't be conflicts. Now, there are in between truths, right? Because sometimes we know something to be true, and because we are evolving, it changes. Our world is evolving, or our consciousness evolves. We learn a new, deeper truth. It doesn't mean that the first truth was wrong, but maybe it was limited. So, this is that expansion of truth that we're moving into. And if we remember that that is what we're looking for, then whichever side of that coin we're on, there is not a conflict. There isn't there's nothing to be afraid of, because what you know will either evolve to deeper truth or will stay steady with new information. There is one, I don't know if it's an exception, but I always say I am so driven for new knowledge. Like, that's just who I am. And I think a lot of us are, but not everybody is. Some people are just happy and they're living a good life and they're treating people with respect and they're offering service, doing something to, better the world, or at the very least, not harm anyone. And they're content with that. And that's all they want in this life. They don't need to fill in the gaps or get new information. And that's okay. And if you are someone like that, again, probably not watching this show, but if you are, then, or someone and that's the way they are, that's okay. They don't have to gain new information. They don't have to learn about science if their base is in spirituality, or vice versa, as long as they're living their best life. But if your best life includes more knowledge, or if your limited view is harming you or someone else in a way, then it is good to expand your consciousness and look at this from different directions. One thing that inspired me to talk us today is the vaccine issue. As we've been moving through COVID, people have had very strong opinions, and there's been some dichotomy about whether or not to take and trust modern medicine. And I think that's been going on for a while. But I think that it's important to understand. Let's start back with science and the fact that we wouldn't be here today, right? Like, it is the support of science that allows us to live the way we live. And it allows us to understand enough about the world that we have time not to just be in the ego survival state, but to explore the different realms. And whether we're exploring it through science or through spirituality, meditation, yoga, and different aspects of consciousness, we have the freedom to explore it, very much in part because of science, because we have the life that we're living right now. And I think it's important to understand that and acknowledge that, and to realize, to step back and think about, are you making your decisions based on fear or on love? And I prefer love or acceptance or interest and growth to fear, but I make my decisions based on fear sometimes. We all do. So I'm not saying exactly how you should go about doing this, but to look at whether you're in a space of fear or of love. When you're pushing against anything, you're pushing against oneness, right? Everything is within oneness. If you speak of it in terms of God, most people include everything within God, right? If God is the creator, God created everything, then um, science is included in that, and so are the scientists. So, is your worldview that the world is evolving and working towards helping you grow? A loving view that humanity is loving and growing, and we're in this together, or are you pushing against things as a way of keeping a belief system? If your belief system is solid, it can accept new information. So, just think about that as you explore that for yourself. The other thing that, well, you know what? Like I said, I have been pretty excited about science for a while. I wasn't really excited about it back in school. In fact, I'm thinking now of some not so fun experiences that I had along the way in science classes. But I got more excited about it, and Justin did play a role in that also, because even as a child, Justin introduced me to many different videos of science and some great authors. I'm going to talk to you about those in a little bit, not quite yet, but that interest has, just like I said, grown and grown. The more I have tapped into my higher levels of consciousness, the more I just want to absorb information from different perspectives. Now, as a spiritual channel, which I have been doing for quite some time, I also am aware that I have the ability, the skill, and the desire to tap in and expand my attention and allow other energies to speak through me, but I'm still that vessel, right? So the more information that I download into my brain, the more things, the more aspects of life on earth that I allow myself to digest, available in my little brain computer for the divine to access and help express their truths when I use that technique. So to me, it's quite essential to just absorb more information. And then recently, and it's not recently that I just heard of them, and we'll talk about that later, but I have gotten obsessed with IONS lately, which is the Institute of Noetic Science, because they are researching and investigating consciousness and worldviews and the science that connects us. And that piece, to me, when science and spirituality fill in whatever gap may be there, it's just going to explode humanity's potential. And I've always felt like it should be normal. It should be normal for people to live from that space of consciousness, to utilize some of the gifts and the tools that I have access to. And so seeing that intersection coming. Now, noetic science is that exploration of that gnosis, that wisdom that's inside of us. And it involves intuition, insight, psychic, and mystical awareness. And that, of course, is right up my ballpark, right? But there's other elements of science and even more, but I'm just kind of telling you the three that are most in my foresight. There's quantum physics too. And I sort of got interested or got exposed to quantum physics earlier than noetics. And if you look in quantum physics, now they're not consciously seeking to explore the psychic realm, but they are reaching new information that is leading them to have to acknowledge that which we haven't made tangible yet, that which we haven't understood. If you look into consciousness, there is no scientific understanding of what consciousness is. What is creating the dialogue in our head, the imagination, what runs these bodies that we have, what are those energies and how does it work, is still being explored. So the more science and physics moves in the direction of understanding, the closer they come to understanding that there's a frequency that is influencing us, and that and spirituality is what we've been tapping into. So combining the two together is pretty exciting. I will be having some links for you to look at if you haven't moved. Probably a lot of people have heard of Greg Braden. He has a few good videos out that talk about the entanglement theory and the understanding that they're coming to, that our human DNA will influence photons, and that so influence the energy, basically, if we're going to talk in the terms I usually use, and have the energy around our DNA when tested in a lab will shift to engage with it. And there's many different studies that show this effect and this engagement through quantum physics. And then, like I said, the microbiology, the more I learn about it, the more fascinated I become. And because my path has been like, okay, here I am, but I feel something more, right? Looking at soul, looking at the spiritual concepts, and then expanding outward into the different frequencies that I tap into, all the way to oneness, because we know science has concluded that there is one energy that connects us all, and that everything is connected in some way and influences each other, which is also where we reach in oneness. So it's one thing to know it, to see it in the micros laboratory experience, and then also to experience it by feeling it and living it, which is what I've been focusing on in my teachings. And watching these two expand opens it up, and we see that we have a deeper experience of it when we combine our mental understanding with the experiential understanding of our soul. And the more I went into the expansion, then I started looking at the internal and realizing that the tiniest aspects of ourselves is part of what connects us. So I could go on and on forever. I'm going to give you some links of videos you can watch and, build a friendship with science if you haven't. And if you're a scientist, build a friendship with spirituality, because we can be great friends. Have a wonderful week. I want to remind you, in January 22nd, we will have the Empower Summit. Make sure you're here on Solivity TV for that. And the next Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure is on January 27th. It begins. Have a beautiful week.